Today I'll talk about pasture establishment, and there are a few reasons why I selected that topic. The first one is primarily because it's likely the most costly thing that you're going to do on your forage operation. If you have a pasture, probably the most expensive thing that you're going to do is plant a new pasture. That will cost you about $600 an acre. So if you think about it, it will be almost a calf they'll have to give up if you need to establish a new acre. So very costly, first thing. The second one is not only you spend all that money on pasture establishment, but also you cannot graze it for a long time, right? When you plant a new pasture, such as bahia grass that takes a long time to grow, it may take from 6 months to a year for you to have cattle on. And that is another cost right there, because you have all the area and you cannot graze it, so you are not producing anything on that acreage. So it's a long time to establish, and then most of the times what we do we sell cattle when we plant a new pasture? No, we just keep the same cattle that we have. So if we take that area from production, what's gonna happen to the other area? You'll be overgrazed. Because you don't have enough pasture anymore, you are replanting that one that will take a year, and then you are not only overgrazing and losing production, but you are killing the other pastures in your place that may need to be replaced. So planting new pastures is really strategic to your operation, because it makes a huge difference in your production. So last year we have a very particular year, and I have been in Florida since 2001. And in my opinion was the worst year for us in forage production that I have seen. Primarily because we came in the spring dry up to June. So then, if you need to plant limpo grass, star grass, Bermuda grass, they'll need plant material didn't grow because it was so dry, right? And then what happened in September? We had a hurricane. And then it flooded. The same place that was dying because it was too dry, it got flooded. And then we lost limpo grass pastures because we had too much water. We have seen this over and over. Hillsborough County, Hardy County, Osceola County, people lost pasture because it got too wet. Very stressful to the pasture. So then the only way is to replant the pasture, right? If you lost it, you can have two options: or let it grow and then the weeds will take over, or you have to replant. So that was probably a particular year that establishment will be an important thing. So with that in mind, the cost for establishment, I think you cannot get away too far from that. That will be the cost. You need to do it right, and the basics that we have been talking for many years are still the same. So if you need to plant a new pasture, just do it right. I'm not guaranteed that you're going to get a good stand because we depend on weather. But if you do it right, you have less risk. That means you need to lime, you need to prepare the soil, you need to buy good seed, and that is all has been reported. But our approach now is trying to decrease that time that you do not use the pasture. That is our idea. You have that 6 months that you plant bahia grass, you can get nothing out of it. So then we are trying to come up with some mixtures with grasses and legumes that will make you be able to graze that pasture probably in 6 weeks. Instead of having that long time that you cannot use it, you may graze in about 6 weeks. And that will really decrease the time, and then will make you more productive in that area that has been pretty much a bare soil for a while. So what we have here, and I'll have to tell you a little background information about these plots. We planted these plots and it got a frost in March. So that doesn't happen in South Florida very often, but it happened this year. So what you see here is supposed to be right now around my knee height, but it got really stunted by the frost. But even though we still have some good visual here, and I'll tell you what we are doing here. Here we have 3 different approaches to plant. We have a species that is called Brachiaria that's pretty similar to our bahia grass on the germination standpoint by itself, and that's the plot right here. That is just the brachiaria. Or we mix with the brachiaria the sorghum Sudan grass, that is an annual, and sun hemp, that is a warm season legume. The 3 we mix together with the full seeding rate or half of the seeding rate. So this is just sun hemp. That is the mixture of sorghum and sun hemp and brachiaria at half of the seeding rate. Okay? What happened was, this is the second year that we are doing the trial. What happened was, in that 6 weeks, when we have the lag time, when we did the mixture with half of the seeding rate, we got 2,000 pounds of dry matter in the first 6 weeks. While when we have only the brachiaria, we have less than 300 pounds of dry matter. And I think one of the main points on the outcome is, at the end of 6 months, those were the same. The annual forages were grazed and they disappear, while the brachiaria just grew and established, as well as the plots that were planted with brachiaria by itself. So we probably in the first year we have a good year to show that that mixture can produce up to 3,000 pounds more of forage in the year of establishment. So, and that is a great outcome, because if you make the calculation there, you can probably stock really heavy up to that point and have a very good cattle production. That is the easy and the good story about this thing. But now I will tell you the wreck, right? I will tell you where the things can go wrong. First of all is if you get a frost after you plant early, right? That you can see right here. What you can have is still better, and we think we still have a good outcome, but weather will dictate how successful we will be. But the other thing is, that has been a real problem, is you make the mixture and you don't graze it or harvest. So I have some friends that they plant Bahia grass and millet. And now a lot of the city companies, they want to market Bahia grass and millet because it's more economical for them, because the millet seed is a little cheaper. They mix and send you the same seeding rate, so then it becomes attractive for them. And you can have a good production. That trial there is millet with Bahia grass. Didn't grow very well because of the frost. But millet and Bahia grass has been a very popular mixture. But some of my friends, what they say, well, I will let the millet grow to seed, and then I'll have birds, and I'll attract wildlife. It'll be pretty, it'll be nice. And that is a big no-no. Don't do that, because the millet will choke the Bahia grass, and Bahia grass will never come. By the time that you harvest the millet, after 2 or 3 months after you plant it, Bahia grass will not be there, and then you have nothing. So if you decide to do the mixture and use the mixture, you need to make sure that you have cattle to graze it, or you're gonna harvest somehow. And you think that 6 weeks is the time right there, because at 6 weeks with reasonable weather, you're gonna get that sorghum almost on your waist high. So they'll be tall. Very good nutritive value. So you need to harvest. Don't let it grow, because you choke your perennial pasture, and then you ended up with pretty much a disaster. They will have to replant the next year. Another thing that we are doing, still on the mixtures, is some of you here from South Florida has limpo grass. Somebody have limpo grass here? Yeah. I like my friends from South Florida, because if you talk about limpo grass up north, nobody don't know what it is. But here for us, limpo grass is a very good forage, mainly because it grows in wet places, right? We have a wet spot, that is the place for the limpo grass. But that is also a problem, because every time that we try to plant limpo grass in the summer, guess what happened? It's too wet, right? The place that is good for limpo grass is underwater during the summer, and we never have that window to plant. Last year was an example of that, because we came from the drought, no plant material. And then we tried to plant in August, September, it was too wet, and then we never planted. We have to harvest the plant material, and we sell some plant material here at the center. A lot of people don't come to pick it up because it was too late. But one approach that we learned with some of our producers is we are planting limpo grass in the fall in a mixture with annual ryegrass. That is the second trial that we are doing. So we learn from practical experience. We still don't have research data. So that's what we are collecting this year and next year. And we mix that, we just plant the limpo grass as it is, plant material. We stick in the soil, roll it, and then we overseed with annual ryegrass. In general, that land is wet anyway, and will hold moisture during the fall. So you can have a pretty good stand of ryegrass. That is not my favorite forage for South Florida, don't take me wrong, because we know the annuals, the winter annuals here, they don't do very well. We know that. But in that approach, so you can still plant your limpo grass and still have some cool season forage there that you can use during the winter. What is the requirement for that approach? Same thing. You need to graze, start grazing that ryegrass in January, graze it short. Graze it like you're gonna kill it, because that's what you need to do. By March, you are done. By March, the ryegrass is gone, and your limpo grass now will start coming up, and then you don't have cattle on the top anymore. So graze it hard from January to March, and then you stop right there and let the limpo grass to take over. So we have seen some very good stands that were established like this, and now we are collecting data thinking that we can have an option to plant limpo grass in South Florida that has been very challenging for us in the last few years. And we got calls from producers all the time because you create two problems. The first one, you have the land prepared and you didn't plant, right? What are you gonna do? Second one is now I have a plant material that is 6, 7 months old. What are you gonna do with that, right? So then you need to harvest and feed, but the nutritive value will be extremely low. So then you have something that is not very good to feed, and also you don't have a place planted. So with that approach, we hope that we'll be able to get a little drier, establish the limpo grass, and still come up with some forage for the winter. So this is the information that I'd like to share with you today, and I think we may have time for some questions that may be related to the topic or any questions about forages that you may have. Yes, sir. Joe.
Limpo grass and ryegrass. When, so you get ready to plant limpo grass. When do you put the ryegrass seed on? What? Same time when you're rolling? Go ahead and do, even though it's the middle of the summer, roll it. The moisture will keep the seed until it's cool enough to grow. That's what you're...
Yes. The question from Joe is the timing to put the ryegrass on. Yes, Joe, that's correct. But this approach is for a limpo grass that you didn't plant in the right time, or is late. So will be late September, October. And then you have a chance to put if you eventually got your limpo grass on the ground by late August, September, I think that will be fine. So then you may have forage by December. But if you are late, so then you may try to add some ryegrass there and try to get another crop out of it. Yes, sir.
So you're saying you're able to sprig the limpo grass in the fall of the year, and it'll lay dormant and germinate out of that sprig in March?
Yes, the question is if the limpo grass will go dormant during that time of the year and then will come back in March, correct? Right. And that is not right. That is incorrect. What we do when we plant late, because the limpo grass doesn't have a dormancy trigger, like most of the warm season, as we can see, it grows a little in the winter, right? You can see your limpo grass coming up. That new plant material that you have on the ground during that time will build roots, and some of that will germinate it. But you're gonna have a ryegrass there that the cattle just clean up. And what happens is because the metabolism of the plant is really slower during that time, even it has little roots, you are not able to kill it just with the grazing. But by March, that plant will pick up, and then is the time when you cannot graze it anymore.
Right, but and that was my question. Was it actually rooting during the winter?
It is.
Was it waiting dormant until March?
Yeah, that's correct. It's rooting and is established by that time. You may not see the same, and that's the things that we're gonna figure out. You don't have the same establishment or as fast as it can be during the summer. The plants are really slower and don't travel that much. You don't have the stolons going, but you have the plant established. And then we'll have opportunity in March, and then you take off. Yes, sir?
I've had problems planting ryegrass with being too warm, and I've started planting ryegrass with limbograpss, like you said, but I'm using Japanese millet instead. Have you tried that?
Yeah, the question is if you can add Japanese millet to the mixture in the fall, right?
Yes.
In the fall. Yes, you can. Yes, you can. What happened with the millet in the fall is because the millet is day length sensitive, you will go to flower really early. So you will not have the same production of millet that you'd have at this time of the year, because that millet will go to seed. Right. But you can add the millet in the mixture, and if you get some growth, you can graze it and it will be fine.
Doctor?
Yes.
Using herbicides here, and if not, how come you don't have any grass and weed intrusion?
The question from Mr. Davis is why he doesn't have any weed. We have a very good weed scientist here.
Oh. You must have a big plant.
Yeah. And that question also, it's important because with this approach, if we plant the barrier grass by itself, we don't have any herbicide available for early stages. You cannot apply any herbicide to new barrier grass, newly planted. So you need to let the weeds come and just mow it. So, and that's a problem. With this approach, what happened is we didn't have weeds because the sorghum and the sun hemp just shaded the whole thing and covered the area. So in the plots that we have brachiaria by itself, we were full with weeds and we have to mow. But the other plots, we didn't have any weeds because they were pretty much full with sorghum and the sun hemp, and we didn't have weed problems. But still, our weed scientist is very good. If I have any problems, I'll just call him or walk to his office. Any other questions?
On the brachiaria, we used some of it before, and I found that it got pretty tough for the cattle. Like, it grew fast and strong, but they graze the tops and not go to the bottom. I don't know if there's another strain of it or...
Right. Yeah, the question from Jason is about the brachiaria, grazing the brachiaria and using how it gets. This family and this species is very broad, so we have all different types. So this one that we are planting here, I'm not saying that the brachiarias are the best one for us because it doesn't like poorly drained soils. So this brachiaria is for soils that are well drained, and I haven't seen a lot of those here in South Florida so far. So it's a very specific grass, but this species here is a hybrid, and it is a very good nutritive value grass. It's actually as good as the sorghum. The protein and digestibility is very good, but it takes a lot of management and finding the right spot. We have some species of brachiaria that if you let it grow too much, you get too stemmy, and then it will be very hard for cattle to graze it. It's still, sometimes we use for stockpiling, and you know, sometimes it's better to have something bad than not having anything like we do right now. So I would like to have some tough brachiaria right now, but just for that purpose, because some of them, if you don't manage right, you'll get too ranky. And if you want some details about these species, I can pass to you. So they are hybrids, and they sell the seeds around Frostproof here at Wise. Okay, I'm getting a sign from my wife saying I need to stop talking and move. So, yeah. Appreciate your time, and if you have any other questions later, I'll be available around, so thank you.